All right, get some books for us. Thank you so much. It's also Friday, we can't forget. Thursday, that is. Just before Friday. So we're ready for Shabbat, getting ready for Shabbat. Parashat Chayei Sarah. You may not know, but every year for the last 20 years or so, Shabbat, when we read Chayei Sarah, has been an extremely large Jewish gathering in Hebron. Tens of thousands of people streaming to Marat HaMachpelah and to Hebron and to Kiryat Arba for the entire Shabbat. It's quite an amazing operation. People sleep in schools, people eat in meals all together, arranged by different chesed organizations, Chabad, and the local community that supports those people in Hebron, the people who live directly in Hebron. They get a real big boost every year on Shabbat Chayei Sarah. This year, fortunately, it was canceled because of the security situation. They're not allowing any, only residents. And the big party will have to wait for better times. Slat Hashem. But it is the invention of Avraham buying the Marat HaMachpelah, buying Hebron, the field of the cave. And putting down our roots, symbolic putting down of our roots in the land of Israel. Also, you guys know Jake? Remember Jake? We took him back to Tel Aviv. He sent me a piece he wrote. Thank you, sir. We're having a party? Is it your birthday?
Friday.
It's Thursday, yeah, before Friday. In any case, Jake wrote something up. Did he send it to you? I don't know if he shared it with you. So he did some research. He did some research about the from the 20s, before there was a state of Israel, before there was occupation. And, there were brutal massacres by Arab population in Yaffo, in Jerusalem, and most famously in Hebron, 1929. I think they killed 64 Jews and their neighbors. And with the similar depictions of the gruesome, mutilation and just barbaric activities of our Arab neighbors. It's hard for us to imagine, so we push it down or we ignore it. But unfortunately, we get these reminders that I heard this description being used. In many ways, the Arab world, Arab countries, is benighted. Do you know what that word means? I had to look it up to see the use. It's the opposite of enlightened. It's benighted. Enlightened, and this is benighted. Light versus night. Dark versus, it's like the Dark Ages versus the Enlightenment. They're really underdeveloped, and they in many ways they're barbaric. And obviously many are very enlightened. I'm not saying they're all like that, but the culture in many ways is very stuck in very uneducated and not advanced in terms of the way they treat their own, the way they treat others. And it's hard for us to imagine, but we have to face it sometimes, or else we see what happens when we don't prepare for it. We don't recognize it. So Hashem should give us enlightenment. We should be enlightened, not only in our morals and our values and the way we live our lives and our education, but also open our eyes to realize that not everybody is where we are. And the way we're going to make the world a better place is not by pretending that our neighbors are Norwegians, assuming they're a little more enlightened than the Arab cultures around us, or Canadians. And then I said the other day, if our neighbors were Canadians, we'd have peace in a minute. Then somebody said, you know how much anti-Semitism there is in Canada? I said, all right, not Canadians, whatever. Choose a modern, country with values that of goodness. Oh, thank you, sir.
Not English.
We won't get into the definitions here of specific political realities, but even the English are and the Canadians they're light years ahead of where society and culture is, and what passes for moral behavior. Of course, the Brits now have a big problem, like all of Europe, because they let in all these hundreds of thousands of Muslims, and anti-Semitism in Europe is well known in the modern age. So it's complicated, of course. But in terms of the type of savage behavior that passes for something that you want your children to grow up to and you're proud of, and you film, and you use this type of activity to terrorize people, that is just it's unheard of. It's unspeakable. We can't even watch the film. We just can't imagine it. And this is something that this other culture is proud of. So it's really a big culture gap, unfortunately. And we have to be aware of it so that we can overcome it. We can overcome it both militarily and physically. We have to protect ourselves, but also the big goal is Kimitzion Teitei Torah, Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. We hope that we'll be able to influence them and bring them up morally and culturally to a better place. That's the end game.
We don't give them a choice. We don't give them the option.
Oh yeah, no, I'm all in favor of incorporating as many Arabs and Muslims into Israel and giving them a good education. Good morning. Adla. And hopefully that will. That's one way to fight the jihadism and the radical Islam. There is other options, but left to their own devices, unfortunately, we've seen that they're not there yet, and they're quite the opposite. In Islamic countries, for the most part, they're very the way they treat their own is deplorable and doesn't live up to any kind of moral standard which anybody here would even imagine. In terms of the care for human lives, the care for poverty and corruption, and it's not like we're perfect either, but light and day. So Be'ezrat Hashem, I think this is what Avram Avinu started. Here we are talking about Avram, Chai Sarah, Parshat Shavua, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So Avraham, he was the first one to start to spread the light of monotheism and ethical monotheism, as sometimes it's defined. And he started to educate the world. And the Rambam writes that Islam and Christianity, in some ways, are stepchildren of the Jewish novelty in the world, the Jewish way of life, and it helped somewhat spread Jewish values throughout the world. At least, fighting against paganism and polytheism and those kind of things. But that doesn't mean that that either one, Christianity or Islam, is rectified and fully fixed version of the correct beliefs and values of Judaism. And even the way we live Judaism today is not the ideal Judaism. So we still have a ways to go. Hashem's name will be one, and He will be one, and all of the world will recognize and hopefully be elevated to a higher plane of morality, of development, through a moral worship of the one God. That's the end game. And the more we're stronger about who we are, and we realize that we have some enemies to defeat, then we'll be able to influence others, not by closing our eyes, imagining that it's not our responsibility. We have to take more responsibility, not put them behind a fence and say, well, let them do what they want to their people. Well, there's more aid per capita was given to the people of Gaza in the last 20 years than anywhere in the world, by far. And all that money was taken to build hundreds, I heard up to 500 kilometers of underground tunnels for the terrorists. This is what they spent their money on, 500 kilometers underneath a very small, the whole land is 30 kilometers by 15, I don't know, by 20. The whole thing is tiny, but underneath is hundreds of kilometers. That's what they spend their money on. And we just, tried to build a big fence, very fancy fence, and say it's not our responsibility, it's not our concern. Fortunately, it's our concern. And we can't just sweep it under the rug, as they say. Bezrat Hashem. Hopefully we'll wake up. Yes?
Well, I hope that this moment now put us together.
Amen.
And because my life had been, this few weeks have been changed.
Yeah.
So-called friends.
Wow. From Chutz La'aretz, you're saying? From around the world?
From around the world, my friends in Sweden, my friends in the US, Britain, all these people.
They've turned against you, huh?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And I want to put in my mind, what is that? How
Right.
is it?
It's very hard to imagine.
Yes, because the guys that we studied together, we lived together,
Yeah.
today they call me names. Friends that say live 25 years.
Wow.
I feel hurt, but because I don't want to hate,
Right.
but I want to find the ways that I can clean.
Wow. Yeah, it's very disheartening. The fact that we have to fight a war and we have to protect ourselves is bad enough, and that we're having such sacrifices of our children, and we had to suffer through this terrible massacre, and the war that we're now waging is bad enough. But Binyamin is saying, on top of all that, we have a horrible, we have to deal with another aspect of this, is that the Western world, people who we respected and were friends with, don't get it. They don't seem to understand that, there's good and evil here, and that, and the ancient anti-Semitism is rearing its head, as they say, and you wouldn't expect it. People,
No.
Yeah.
People that is in your table eating with you today say you are racist. killing
Right.
the poor Palestinians
Right.
when they know they work at the SIDA, this organization
Okay.
of financing
Okay.
the hospital
Mm-hmm.
there where they are using. I know
Yeah.
because my daughter work with,
Yeah.
and when the people say, no, how come? Are you stupid? You self did it.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling. It's very hard. On top of, as I said, on top of the war, we have to deal with trying to grasp how educated people seem to not get it, and it's hard to understand. I think going back to this ancient idea that there's hatred of the Jews is got to be part of the picture of understanding this. And of course, you could talk about miseducation, you could talk about the press, you could talk about the public relations and all the external things. But at its core, it's still I think we need more to understand it. It's very hard to understand that. People that are educated, people that should know better, they seem to be choosing the wrong side. It's very shocking. It's very shocking.
We still have to fight Isaf.
Oh, for sure, for sure. We have to survive. It's us or them, and we're going to choose us, and that's clear. I think to every Israeli realizes, especially after the 7th of October. It's already more than a month ago.
No, Isaf.
So who is Esav? You're just taking, those are metaphysical concepts.
Canada, America, England.
Yes and no. It's sort of self-defining, like we said before about we don't have Amalek anymore. The nation, as genealogically, just doesn't exist. The tribe doesn't exist. So we don't have Esav either. It's like you can't. The Chazal, the times of sages, they said Rome was Esav. Okay, this was a metaphorical interpretation of the bad guys versus the good guys, and maybe a little more than that. But to apply that to specific countries, it's up to them. If they choose the wrong side, then obviously they self-identify.
They've chosen and they choose the wrong side of the day.
Okay, well that's their choice, but I bristle at taking these metaphysical concepts of Amalek and Esav and pinning them on specific nations.
We're not fighting Amalek today.
I believe we are. That's the moral battle between good and evil. Between what did someone write? I'm trying to see which one is the right one. Well, the one that loads hostages onto a truck and parades them through the town. Those are the bad, and slaughters innocent babies. Those are the bad guys. Maybe you're onto something. That for sure. So whoever sides with the bad guys, obviously you can call them metaphorically Amalek, and we're going to battle against them, no question. But
those that defend the Palestinians' right to use their children as human shields, that's Isaf. I mean, that's the people that call Benjamin a racist. That's Isaf. Our enemies. I mean, they show us who they are.
Exactly. So by their actions and who they support, and then they're choosing a moral choice, and so we have to fight. We have to fight that war of good against evil. No question about it in my mind. But I don't know. I'm still holding on to. I don't like the idea of identifying the entire nation like Canadians. Okay, I know most Canadians. I'm Canadian, right? I grew up in Canada, so I know. I just want to, play hockey and drink beer and have a good time. And
but the majority defines them. I mean, if the majority take this line, that defines their country as maybe not everybody, but
yes, I'm not so quick to define entire polities, entire countries as Amalek. I think that we live in an age where there's democracies. Okay, democracies depends on the majority. So right now there's a majority that's, right-wing fascists. The next day, what happened in Germany after the Holocaust, right? they become the most peace-loving nation for 50 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Japan too. Japan, they got beat up. They got beat up.
It's not saying it's peace loving, but
Okay,
you need
but
security for peace as well. I mean, pacifist like.
I'm just saying that, so if I were to define Germany as Esav, as Amalek, so then that's like a metaphysical, essential definition. I bristle at that because in the Western democracies, you can change. The education can change, the culture can change, the atmosphere can change, and there are some countries which are, vote with Israel at the United Nations, and some are in the middle, and there's so. I like to keep the metaphysical, essential definitions on the ideological level, and with Esav and Yishmael, but to pin it one on specific countries, it's
They have prime ministers.
when they act that way, we have to react to what they do, no question about it. But I wouldn't define them as essentially Esav. They can change their ways. They change their ways, and tomorrow they'll be peace-loving friends of the Jewish people. Could happen. So there's nothing innately evil. Even in England, I'm sorry to say, for my English fellow, there's nothing innately evil about England. I don't think. They've chosen a lot of bad choices, and they have to, we have to fight them on that, and that's why we were fighting the British to get the mandate out of their hands, and they were supporting the Arabs, and they were stopping us, for the Jewish people, from coming back to our land. So we fought them. But I don't think England is innately evil. I don't think that's the same. So that's just a word. What is it? What do you mean by Esav? Esav was a fellow written about in the Torah, right? The brother of Yaakov, and Esav is a
jealous brother.
A jealous brother.
Very jealous.
If that's what you mean, so you have to use your terms.
Violent
The
brother.
term Esav doesn't help me because it's so ambiguous. You could mean that they're evil barbarians. It could mean that they're Christians. It could mean it could mean 1,000 things. So using the word Esav doesn't help me. And that's my approach. Is that some people liked it. We want to pull power from our very rich literature, and these concepts are very powerful, but they're so imprecise that I find it can be misleading and worse, it could be even dangerous. You call our enemies Amalek. Okay, of course, anybody who kills babies, innocent babies, he's acting like Amalek. But you have to be careful. Amalek, you're allowed to go kill every man, woman, and child. That was the mitzvah of Amalek. So nobody says that we have a mitzvah to go do genocide against who? Amalek in the day was defined by genealogy. There was a nation called Amalek. So today, you're going to say, I don't know, for example, Egypt. All the Egyptians. So do we want to commit genocide about all the Egyptians because they're Amalek? Oh, they may be acting like Amalekites, and when they do, we have to beat them and win the war. But these broad definitions of modern polities, using those ancient terms of Esav and Amalek, I think is dangerous.
Not ancient anymore. We're living in the land. They came back to life.
We are the only ancient nation that still has a blood relation to that ancient world. But all those other nations, they may be acting like those enemies of old, and we have to beat our enemies. But that's just my thing. Other rabbis, they use the terms freely. I don't like it. Anyways, enough of matters of the day. We will pray soon for our success of our soldiers and hostages. In the meantime, we're gonna cap it here, if that's okay. If somebody else want to say something before we stop with our current events, a few minutes we took out of the lesson. The Seder. Let's go back and try to progress. It's the last meeting of the week. Today, as we said, is Thursday. Shmuel, thank you for bringing in the treats. Here in Israel, because most businesses and most schools, a lot of at least from high schools and up, don't have classes on Friday. So Thursday is the last day of the week in many companies and many organizations. And so there became a custom in many secular Israeli companies that on Thursday they have something they call Kabbalat Shabbat. They don't sing Lechadodi, but they do gather and they do say this was a nice week and have a nice weekend, and many times someone will say something about the parsha. Maybe sometimes somebody will say some words of Torah of one kind or another. And it's a beautiful thing. It's showing, it's a little bit of a connection to our Jewish identity, even though we all know Kabbalat Shabbat is Thursday afternoon, Friday night, right? Friday afternoon and Friday night is when we have Kabbalat Shabbat. But because of the business, the world, and the way it works, so essentially you have from Thursday on people making Kabbalat Shabbat, including on the radio and the media, because most of the media, they have their regularly scheduled broadcast Sunday through Thursday. Friday already, it's a special programs, it's different, newscasters, it's different, broadcast schedule. And so you have on Thursday on the radio and the media in all of Israel, you have Kabbalat Shabbat. You have something that's bringing you into Shabbat already from Thursday. And I think I told you that in recent years, you can go to many stores and restaurants, and on Thursday night they sell cholent. Have you heard about this? You can get the Thursday night cholent in preparation for Shabbat. Obviously, cholent is the Shabbat food for Shabbat morning, but it's such a yummy food and it fills the belly. There is even a custom, it's not only so recent, there is a custom in the yeshiva world that you learn all week, right? You go to sleep, you learn in the day. Most yeshivot have 3 sedarim. What's a seder? Seder is a learning session. Seder boker, seder tzahorayim, and seder erev. This yeshiva too. Apparently seder erev is kind of weak, but in what we aim for is to have 3 major learning sessions: the morning session, the afternoon session, and the evening sessions. Some places, they have people go to work all day, and so they only have Seder Erev, evening learning session. When I went to yeshiva, I was learning 13, 14 hours a day. 5 hours in the morning, 5 hours in the afternoon, and then another 5 hours at night. And then, a little bit before, a little bit afterwards. You sleep 6 hours, you do what you have to do, and then you go back to learn. This is somebody who's in yeshiva works really hard if he's doing it the right way, and it's not wasting time, not just having an easy life. In any case, there is a custom, an additional custom, that Thursday night there's something called mishmar. Have you ever heard of what mishmar is? It means a watch, like when guards go on duty, they go for a specific watch. Okay, it's 6 hours, it's 3 hours, it's 8 hours at a time, whatever it is. You go up and you have your time of guard duty. So mishmar in the temple, they actually divided up the night into 3 or 4 watches. Each watch was 3 hours or 4 hours. There's a debate in the Talmud exactly how it works. Based on that, we have the laws of Shema, by the way. The laws of Shema are based on the mishmarot. Anyways, in the modern context, the yeshiva started to have on Thursday nights, after Seder Erev, you learn till 11, whatever it is, 10:30, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Usually, most nights, you get your night's sleep, and then you wake up to fresh for another day of learning. So you have, right, was it 3 sedarim, so potentially 15 hours of usually Seder Erev is a little shorter, because you get tired and you have to go to sleep. After Seder Erev, then starts Mishmar. What Mishmar is an all-night learning session. Did you ever pull an all-nighter?
Once, yeah.
Once.
In Chabad.
In Chabad.
Me and the rabbi started like
All night long. Wow. Okay. When is there a custom that everybody, all the populace, stays up all night to learn? Shavuot. That's right. The night of Shavuot. So in some yeshivot, the yeshiva students do it every Thursday night. Mishmar. Mishmar. You stay up all night long and you learn, and then Friday there's not regular classes in some yeshivot, and so you sleep it off, and then you're ready for Shabbat. You're doing your Shnai Mikra V'Chad Targum. You're doing your review of the Parsha on Fridays, and you're getting ready for Shabbat, and you're traveling, or you're cleaning, etc. Because Mishmar is a feature of the yeshiva world, and it's wonderful. It doesn't have to be all night. Some people, Mishmar, especially Thursday night, that's tonight, you do a little bit extra. So every other night you go to sleep at 11. You leave the Beit Midrash at 11. Thursday night, leave the Beit Midrash at 12, at 1, at 2. At 3. You see people trying to push themselves to the max because it's their last opportunity to learn for the week. After that, it's going to be Friday Shabbat, where it's not the regular learning schedule. So you try to cram it all in. Thursday night, in some places they have an all-nighter. An all-night mishmar. So together with that mishmar, I think that's where it started, this idea that people started to make cholent for Thursday night. In addition to the cholent that you make for Shabbat, all night you need some snacks. So you could have some ragalach and you could have some Coke, and it's good. Definitely you need some caffeine usually, but sometimes it's nice to have a warm snack, and so some yeshiva started to make cholent. It's a very cheap food, relatively, and it's yummy, and it keeps you warm in the long winter nights. We talked about learning Torah at night. That's especially in the winter, when the nights are actually longer than the days. You have more time to study if you have candlelight, or if you have electricity, and you need to have fuel, not only to see, but you need to have fuel to stay awake and to keep warm. And the cholent, I think that's where it started. It came from the yeshiva world, where people were doing a mishmar on Thursday night, and then people started liking it and saying, we like, actually, that's so delicious, this cholent. And people who were not staying up all night, or not even learning in yeshiva, maybe when they were in yeshiva, they got used to it. Thursday night is special. It's in preparation for Shabbat, and it became a phenomenon. And now it's even beyond the religious culture. People never even went to yeshiva. They don't know anything about Mishmar, but they know that Thursday night you can go get cholent in the middle of the night in many, many restaurants. It is a very special development here. In any case, if you're able to, learn a little bit more on Thursday nights, that you're joining a wonderful tradition of the yeshiva world. Okay, anyways, so getting ready for Shabbat, in some ways, it's because you're aware that Shabbat is coming. Thursday is your last day of the regular scheduled learning. The last full day. Friday you can learn half a day, but at some point you're going to have to break and get ready for Shabbat. So it's not a full scheduled day no matter what, even if you do have classes. Thursday is the last full day of classes, so we put it all in, and Thursday, and we push it to the max, even if it means a late night. This is but Thursday we're already getting in the mood for Shabbat. Also here, we don't have class on Friday. At least I don't come in on Fridays. There used to be another rabbi, he came in on Fridays and gave classes, but it's a different schedule. It's not the same. So as it's our last day, we try to do something special for Shabbat. If someone else wanted to say something or ask or comment?
Not disturbing you. You are religious. Friday night was the punishment day in the boarding school.
Oh no. Punishments, yeah.
Where they put all the good and the bad things in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You receive gratification or punishment. You don't go out Saturday.
And Friday night was the day of reckoning in the boarding school. It's interesting. Wonder what that tradition, where that comes from. It's not a Jewish tradition.
No, of course not. I'm just when you're talking about it.
You're remembering. It's deep, goes deep. Wow. Okay.
I was not a good boy.
Oh, you got whipped
Yeah.
physically on your hands. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just to remember.
Okay. It's a memory. Okay. Yeah. So, so let's try to learn some Torah. The clock is ticking. We're starting chapter 27 about the laws of saving a life on Shabbat. Shows you how important it is to save a life, not to kill, not to hurt anybody, especially not yourself, but also we have to do what we can to rescue someone, even if the chances of success are slim on Shabbat. We're looking at page 235, chapter 27. Okay, I'm reading the second paragraph now. We desecrate Shabbat to attempt to rescue. Hopefully, we'll rescue some hostages soon, even if the chances of success are slim. Thus, we desecrate Shabbat to bring someone medication, even if it works in only a small percentage of cases, and even if it is an experimental drug that might not be effective. Or we do not desecrate Shabbat to acquire a drug if there's no substantive reason to think that it might help. Right? In the ancient world, there was all sorts of superstitions and all sorts of, things that people did because they didn't know any better, and so we have to be careful. There has to be some level of credibility to the activity before you're going to desecrate the Shabbat, not just on some whim. In cases of uncertainty, we still desecrate Shabbat. For example, if a building collapses, and we do not know whether anyone was inside, even if someone was inside, we do not know whether he's still alive, we clear away the rubble on Shabbat. Despite the uncertainty, the acting of clearing the rubble is called mifakhin et hagal. The fakeach is to clear away. And that lends its name to the general category called pikuach nefesh, which overrides Shabbat. That's any danger to life, any suspected danger to life. Because the classic case which teaches this in the Talmud was when a building fell down and there might be someone in it, so you've got to hopefully get them out. So you've got to remove the rubble. Wait, can you move stones on Shabbat? It's muktzah. And especially if there's no eruv, you can't be moving stuff around. So how can you involve yourself in doing that on Shabbat? Well, if it's a safek, doubt of pikuach nefesh, maybe there's someone in there, and maybe if he's still alive, we go ahead. Israel has made a name for itself around the world, a real Kiddush Hashem, sanctification of God's name, because whenever there is, we have a very developed search and rescue department of the IDF. And so whenever there's like an earthquake or some kind of a natural disaster, Israel sends a team of professional rescue, people who know how to demolish and clear through the rubble, and a team of doctors who has set up a field hospital very quickly. And nations all around the world, they're very impressed and very thankful that sometimes we're the first responders from around the world. It takes a long time for other countries to get their act together and to decide, are we going to send someone, and who should we send, and what do we do? Whereas Israel, unfortunately, I think because of all of our wars and all of our experience with taking apart rubble, we have a developed system, and we know exactly what to do, and we have experts, and we have no hesitation to save a life. Of course we go, and we go even on Shabbat. Now, of course, these laws that we're learning now are about saving Jews, but the tremendous Kiddush Hashem that we do it around the world, and it could be that some people there are Jews, so it could be halachically allowed as well. But the principle is clear that to clear away rubble is called mefakhin et hagal. We sort of open up. The fakeach is like somebody is the pikeach is the opposite of cheresh. Cheresh is somebody who cannot hear. Pikeach is someone who can hear. Because lefakech means to open up. It's like your hearing is closed up, and same thing with this building. It gets closed up because it fell down and got all the door is closed. So you fakech is to open up the rubble, the passageway to get to the people that are maybe buried underneath, and it's a mitzvah to do that even on Shabbat. From here, we learn the general principle is that you do whatever you can to save a life on Shabbat, even if a rescue attempt fails. So you violated Shabbat for nothing. You're only allowed to violate Shabbat to save a life, but if there's nobody there, our tradition says God rewards all those who made an effort. Similarly, if several people drove to different places to obtain a certain medicine that someone needed, they all received divine reward, even though some of them traveled for naught. Even though one may desecrate the Shabbat to save a sick person, one who knows that he will need to care for a dangerously sick person on Shabbat should prepare as much as possible beforehand to minimize the malachot he will perform on Shabbat, since one must prepare for Shabbat before Shabbat. It's good to prepare. If possible, you prepare the bandages and pre-cut them if you know that you're going to. So sometimes also, your wife is in her 9th month. Zat Hashem. If she starts to birth, you have to go to the hospital. That's how child mortality is much lower than it used to be. We have tremendous advantages to giving birth in the hospital. It could save so many times. Save the baby's life, save the mother's life. So you drive to the hospital for sure on Shabbat. But if you know that you might have to drive to the hospital, so you have to drive. But I leave my grandchildren's car seats in the trunk, or I have some books. Well, I don't need to carry them on Shabbat. So if I know that there's a chance that I'm going to use the car on Shabbat for pikuach nefesh, I take out all the extraneous stuff, because transporting them through the public domain is carrying that. So we try to minimize as much as possible the excessive burden. Obviously, if you didn't, and now you got to get to the hospital, so you drive anyways, and it's just a sort of an extra precaution. It's best to be prepared, but if you're not prepared, you have to do it anyways. All right. How do we determine what is considered danger? Page 236. Section 2. Okay, why don't you guys read a little bit? Shmuel, you start us off today, and I've been talking enough. For over half an hour, I've been talking.
Determining danger. Any illness the doctors normally consider dangerous, or for which regular people would hasten to have a suffering patient to save. When regular people would hasten to save a suffering patient, is deemed dangerous. Even if only a small minority of people die from it, and therefore justifies desecrating Shabbat. Thus, one may drive a woman in labor to the hospital, even though in a clear majority of cases she can safely give birth at home. However, one may not desecrate Shabbat on account of the illness or risks that are generally not considered dangerous. Shabbat Yehuda says K is
Shmirat Shabbat Ki'ilchata.
The sages define certain conditions as dangerous. These include internal injuries, severe pains or wounds or internal bleeding, injuries on the back of the hand and foot, that is, infectious and dangerous cuts, very high fevers, scorpion or snake bites, and eye afflictions. Shulchan Aruch. The sages determined all of these cases based on experience, and today's doctors agree in principle, though they use different terminology to describe the conditions. This is not the place to expand on the definition of a life-threatening condition, but there is a general principle. If those present think that the ill or injured party might be in mortal danger, they immediately do whatever is necessary to help him. If they need to call a doctor, they should do so. If they need to drive him to the hospital, they should do so. When the people nearby do not know whether the patient might be in danger, they should ask a doctor, nurse, or medic in the vicinity, or they should call a doctor. If the doctor thinks that the patient might be in mortal danger, even if the patient claims that his condition is not dangerous, they must heed the doctor. Shulchan Aruch. But if the patient maintains that he is in danger, then even if the doctor thinks that he is not, we must desecrate Shabbat and take him to the hospital to be examined. This is because the heart knows its own bitterness, meaning that sometimes only the patient can assess his own condition. Similarly, if a sick person demands a certain medicine or treatment that, based on his experience, could save his life, we heed him.
Okay, stop there. You know, and in the modern medicine, this is very advanced thinking. For many, many years, Western medicine, at least, has been very what's that called? Paternalistic in some ways. In other words, we know better. The doctors, we know, we have research, we have science, and we know everything, and we tell you this is dangerous or it's not dangerous. In the last 20 years, maybe a little more, the medical establishment is getting a little more humble and more aware that they don't know everything. And there's a movement to give more credence to the patient himself. Some of the patient's just crazy, whatever. But if the patient feels like something's happening that's very, very dangerous, even if the doctor says, listen, I see all your charts and I don't see anything, I see all the tests we did, I can't see anything, the patient explains that he has good reason to in my experience, last time I felt like that, I had to go to the hospital. Last time I felt like this, there was something, that turned out there was internal damage or something like that. We pay a lot of attention to that. Halacha pays attention to that. We do things that violate the Shabbat to make sure that nothing is dangerous, or to try to heal them, or to take them to the hospital, even if the doctor says, listen, I don't see it as being something dangerous. The patient knows best, right? A heart knows its own bitterness. Lev yodea marat nafsho. It's a principle from Mishlei. It's used by the sages. And as I'm saying, I think modern medicine is coming to the realization that there's a lot of wisdom to that. Sometimes, the patient knows himself better than the doctors. Sometimes not. So that's why it's tricky. Sometimes the patient's just scared or delusionary or overreacting or hypochondriac. There's all sorts of things like that too. But sometimes, barring those extreme cases, there is a principle in halacha that says we have to listen to the doctors. If the doctor says it's dangerous, you have to treat it like it's dangerous. And if the doctor says it's not dangerous, we don't treat it as dangerous. But there are cases where the doctor says it's not dangerous. The patient says, yes, I'm going to die. Then we listen to the patient, even though the doctor says it's not dangerous. This is what he was describing here. Usually we can find some kind of middle ground. Usually the doctor, will find the doctor tends to be a little bit, there's different approaches of doctors. Some doctors are very careful. They'll look at your medical history. They'll say, well, this sign is not, I wouldn't make much of it if it's a 20-year-old healthy young man, but if he's an 80-year-old, person who has a history of heart disease and this disease and that, so then we have to be more careful, right? So there's a lot depends on seeing the big picture, and so we do rely on the doctor's experience and his knowledge, but we don't discount the patient himself.
You don't talk to your mother.
No, of course not. Of course not. Of course not. You're the 20-year-old, maybe. Yeah.
I have some experience for the kid, for example, the Shabbat accident, and then the finger.
Oish, yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I am his father, I will roughly call the hospital.
Yes.
But at the same time, the finger don't will will not die. Yeah, this is. I think I should call, but I also at the same time pick the Shabbat,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but will not die,
So that's why we're learning the laws right now. We're learning the laws, and we're going to see what the halacha considers to be dangerous. Right away, we just read it. Injuries on the back of the hand and foot. It's at the top of the page, right? That is considered dangerous by halacha because, and it's true, it can get infected, and the bleeding doesn't always stop so easily. So the halacha considers most of what we consider dangerous today dangerous, and even more so. Modern science knows that things which even for example, the eye afflictions, an eye infection. Most people would say, "Oh, it's not so dangerous," but the halacha, the sages considered it very dangerous. I think because of infections. Now we have antibiotics, and we know that if you don't use antibiotics, an infection can get into your body in the finger. I took my mother to the hospital. It was many years ago, 30 years ago, I don't know, something like 25 years ago. She had a little thorn in her finger from a flower or something. But then the finger got, somehow it started to get red, and it's swollen. And she showed it to her doctor. She didn't think much of it, because, okay, it's just a little, a thorn. Doctor sent her to the hospital, and she had to get intravenous antibiotics, because if an infection gets into your body, it could affect the whole system and can cause breakdown of various systems in the body. And so we have to be very careful. And for sure, calling the doctor is very little violation of Shabbat. And then you let the doctor make the assessment. This doctor knows whether it's something to worry about or not to worry about. But let's see. Let's read a little more.
But if we take out the thorn, and you say there's the thorn, is it mature? There's the thorn inside the
Taking out a thorn in general, there's no problem with taking out a thorn. Even if it's you might draw some blood by accident. You're not intending to draw the blood, and if the thorn is painful, you're allowed to take it out because of the discomfort. On Shabbat, we're going to learn about that, but that's not considered to be a danger to life. If it gets infected, then it could be actually dangerous. But that's just a minor discomfort. But you asked about it, so yeah, you can use a needle even, or something to get out tweezers to get out a thorn. Sometimes kids get lots of thorns. They play around and stuff, and they get splinters. You're allowed to take a splinter out on Shabbat to avoid the pain. Yes. Yes.
Question about the hospital in Shabbat and the normal regular operation, everything. Oh, okay.
Yeah, in most hospitals they don't have elective surgery. It means when you can choose to have it on Sunday or Tuesday or Saturday. They don't schedule surgeries for Saturday if you can choose. But emergency situations, of course, they do on Shabbat. And the hospital staff, because of that, there's less on Shabbat. Because, we push off whatever doesn't have to be the regular, of course, taking care of the patients. That goes on. But the elective surgeries and doctor's appointments and checkups and routine tests, those are not done on Shabbat. Only things which are urgent are done on Shabbat. That's the way the system works. Okay. Page 237, the last paragraph. This is something I said to you in the introduction already. Okay, Idan, will you read for us now?
If, in an effort to be pious, one asks a rabbi whether to desecrate Shabbat in order to help someone in mortal danger, he is a killer. For while he is asking, the patient's situation may deteriorate. And the Torah commands us, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Furthermore, the rabbi who still asks such questions is reprehensible, as he should have taught them that saving a life overrides Shabbat.
Okay, so don't make me guilty. If there's a doubt, there's no doubt. You ask. Now, I'm not saying you always, every time you don't feel well, you jump in the car and go to the hospital. But asking a doctor if you think there's something that might be dangerous, by all means, even using the phone, if you need to, you do it. If you know for sure that there's a dangerous situation, by all means, you desecrate the Shabbat. Okay? Next. This is interesting. If you look at the last paragraph, technically on page 238, it's section 3, the last paragraph. Technically, a Jew may not desecrate Shabbat to save a non-Jew, since one may only desecrate Shabbat for the sake of someone who is himself commanded to keep Shabbat. However, in practice, this rule only applies when another non-Jew is present to save his fellow non-Jew. If no other non-Jew is present, one must treat the non-Jew, even if this requires desecrating Shabbat. Since we want non-Jews to save Jews' lives, we must save them as well. The saving a non-Jew's life is included in the category of pikuach nefesh. This is a little bit tricky, especially in the modern world where it's part of the every doctor has to agree. What's that called? There's the oath, the Hippocratic oath, I think, right? Which is, I'm going to save a life, whether it's regardless of race or gender or whether he's my friend or my enemy. You have to save a life. So here, the thing is, all of the Torah's laws, all 613, it's designed for the Jewish people within the Jewish bubble. Jews dealing with other Jews. And that's why we say that this law, that you have to save a life, overrides the Shabbat. That's part of the system of halacha. And therefore it doesn't apply to a non-Jew. But it's not to say that we don't care about non-Jewish lives, but we have a care about the system of Shabbat. So that's the issue where it's sticky on a principled level. On a principled level, if somebody else doesn't have Shabbat, then how can we violate the Shabbat for them? But practically, this goes way back, throughout our history, Jews have been desecrating Shabbat to save other non-Jews, because if we don't, that's first of all, we care about every human life. But even if you say, how can you violate the Shabbat for that? There's a principle called Eva. Eva means there is basically relations of hatred between the Jews and the non-Jews. If the Jews only save Jews and not save non-Jews, then there's going to be bad. That's bad for the relations between Jews and non-Jews. And we have been on the short end of the stick too often of the non-Jews not caring for the Jews. And if we start not caring for the non-Jews, then that's going to intensify that stigma and make it worse. So if we want Jews to be safe anywhere around the world, right? Now, in one place we may have the majority, and we're the ones who are saving their lives. But in most of the world, it's the opposite. We're relying on the non-Jews, putting themselves out in order to save a Jew. So this idea that we have to save non-Jews as well is very entrenched in Judaism. There's some details exactly under what what is the precise reasoning of why and in what conditions do we help the non-Jews. But the bottom line is what's important for this class, and that is we desecrate the Shabbat. A doctor is on call. He doesn't say, oh, there's a patient that needs emergency surgery. Should I come? He doesn't ask, is it a Jewish patient or is it a non-Jewish patient? No, he has to get in his car, drive, do what he has to do to save a life, even if it's a non-Jewish patient. And we don't make those distinctions. Those distinctions are very dangerous. You're playing with life. Not only life in general, but you're also playing with Jews' lives around the world. If we emphasize, or the concept that, well, the laws of Pikuach Nefesh regarding Shabbat apply only to Jews, if we emphasize that, people will get the wrong message, and they'll think that we don't care about the non-Jews, and they say, why should we save a Jew's life if he's not going to save our life? And that is a very, it's a messy business, translating from the principled world. It's sort of connected to what I was saying before. It's tricky going from the principled world to the practical ramifications of that. And sure, there's differences between the Jews and non-Jews, and we have a special role, and we have a special set of rules for how to deal with Jews. But when it comes to medical care and saving a life, we're commanded to do whatever we can to save a non-Jew as well as a Jew. Okay, I hope that's clear. You can see, of course, the footnote where he gets into some of the details, discussions of exactly what clause, under which clause do we approach it or not. Okay. Similarly, if you go on to section 4, you have to go now. Hatzlacha. Section 4 is a similar discussion. As we have seen, a Jew who performs a malacha on Shabbat violates Torah law, whereas a Jew who asks a non-Jew to perform malacha for him violates rabbinic law. Similarly, a minor who performs malacha on Shabbat only transgresses rabbinically. Consequently, it would seem at first glance that when it's necessary to do malacha in order to save a sick person, it's preferable to ask a non-Jew or a child to do it, thereby minimizing Shabbat desecration. However, the sages stated, these things should not be done by non-Jews or children, but rather by adult Jews. That means that even if a non-Jew or child is present, one should not ask him to do the malacha. Only an adult Jew should do it. Actually, some people even say the rabbis should do it, not just an adult Jew. You should ask the most religious person available. Why? Rishonim offer two possible explanations. First is possible that the non-Jew or the child will hesitate and not act aggressively enough to help the sick person because they're not sensitive enough like an adult will be, that how important it is to save a life. Second, even when it is clear that they will act aggressively enough, we're concerned that those present might incorrectly conclude that an adult Jew may not desecrate Shabbat in order to help someone who's dangerously ill. We might be giving the wrong message. Then, if faced with a similar situation sometime in the future, they might delay helping in order to look for a non-Jew or a child. In the meantime, the sick person might die. Therefore, the Rishonim write that if many people are available to help the sick person, it is a mitzvah for the most respected person present to do so, thus making it clear to everyone that saving a life overrides Shabbat and there's no need to seek ways to minimize the malacha. Only if the situation, next page 240 at the top, only if the situation is less pressured and it is easy to find a non-Jew or a child to do the necessary malachot, and doing so will not cause any delay, then, even though lechatchila, an adult Jew may do whatever malacha is necessary to save a life, it is a greater enhancement to minimize Shabbat desecration by having a non-Jew or a child perform the melachot. However, if there's even the slightest, tiniest shadow of a doubt that using a non-Jew or a child will delay the provision of life-saving treatment, either now or in the future, it is better for an adult Jew to do the malacha. So people get this wrong sometimes. They know there's a concept of a Shabbos goy. We talked about it the other day. There's communities that have a non-Jew on hand. That's not for life-threatening situations. That's only when there's no thought of a danger to life. That's for, it's too hot, the air conditioning is not on, or the food is getting is cold, and we want to have our food hot for Shabbat. Then that's what we have a Shabbos goy for. But not for medical things when it could be dangerous. It could take an extra few minutes to call the non-Jew. Maybe he's on the other side of town. You're here right now. You do it as soon as possible to save a life. Don't get confused by the Shabbos goy is not for these kind of situations where there's a danger to life. If there's two people there, and there's non-Jewish, for example, many times it's a non-Jewish caregiver, a nurse, someone who's there to give what's it called? It's called care in the home. What's that called?
Nursing.
Huh?
Nursing care.
What kind of?
Nursing care.
Nursing care. So, hey, our soldier. Come on in, Ezra. Give us a hug. There you are, back from the front.
Back tomorrow. Getting moved up north now.
How you doing?
Good.
All right, looking good.
Looking good.
Feeling good?
Yeah.
I haven't heard from you. I was thinking about you though.
Yeah.
Were you doing training till now?
No, not training, just guarding the kibbutzim down north.
Oh, guarding. Okay, but that's real.
Now
stuff.
we're being moved up north. No idea what we're doing.
Okay. Well, good. And you're healthy. They're taking care of you. You got all your gear. You got your gun. You're back. Ezra, you met him a week ago. He came back from Canada to do his duty in the army. Thank you. We're very proud of you. And see, you got lots of good gear. You're all Canadian stuff. Okay, but it looks good enough. Just need a patch, an Israeli army flag. Israeli flag. Yeah, get a new one.
I was washing the laundry and lost it.
Okay, all right. Anyways, I hope you stay safe. Be strong. Oh, please join us a little bit to learn Torah. Amazing. You know, there's a famous midrash about Yehoshua. Yehoshua, what was he in charge of most famously?
Sending spies.
That's part of it. It's mentioned in the Torah, but that wasn't his major role. He was one of the spies. And then when he started to do his major role, he did send some spies. What was his major role? Conquering the land. He took over from Moshe. Moshe died before they entered the land. Yeshua brought the Jewish people into the land, and he fought against the kings in the north, the kings in the south. He fought in Ai, he fought in Jericho. This is Yeshua. He was our great military leader, right? And yet, our sages say that, based on the verses in the beginning of Yeshua, what happens? He comes into the land, they cross over the Jordan, and then at night, there's a vision. He has a vision of an angel of God comes to Yeshua, and he's holding a sword in his hand. The angel's holding a sword. And Yeshua wakes up, he thinks it's real. He doesn't know that it's an angel necessarily. And he says, are you with us or are you with them? You got to identify. First thing you know is are you friendly or are you an enemy? And the angel answers to him, I'm an angel of God, and I came now. Ata bati. It's a cryptic statement. It's an enigma. What's going on here? Our sages interpret it as follows. They say, I came to you, that this angel of God with the sword was sent to you because of now. What do you mean? What's now? Now versus yesterday versus... So the sages says as follows. Day versus night. In those days, they didn't have night vision. They didn't have thermal, they didn't have all sorts of stuff. Basically, all of warfare was done during the daytime. And as soon as the sun went down, nobody could fight. Not the enemies and not the Jews. And basically, there was no warfare at night. And so the angel said as follows, Yoshua, you were very busy during the day, putting the troops here, putting troops there, taking care of business. You're a very busy, leader. But now it's nighttime. You have a second role. What's the second role of Yoshua? We read together the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which tells us about the chain of tradition. Right? Moshe kibel Torah misinai u'mesara leHoshua. V'Yoshua l'zkenim l'neviim. Yoshua was also a spiritual leader. He was the continuation of the Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu. And the message being given, according to our sages, was, I came to you with a sword, a threatening sword, because you're not learning Torah at night. You're busy all day, no complaints. But when you're off, when you have a break, you have to learn Torah at night. And in response, the psukim in Yoshua, this is chapter 2 of Yoshua, or chapter 3 actually, I think it says, Yoshua vayalen balayla ahu ba'emek. He lay down that night in the valley. And the sages interpret that to mean he lay down in the depth, emek is depth, in the depths of Torah study. He took it to heart, and he made sure to study Torah at night. Even though he was all day busy with fighting, when you're not fighting, you come to yeshiva and learn. Here we have our modern Yehoshua. Ezra got a few hours off. He comes to learn Torah, sit down and learn some halacha with us. Amazing. So this is this is what a friend of mine sent. Beautiful. Our soldiers are so inspirational. Not all of them are grew up that way, but there are some who are Torah scholars at the same time. There's rabbis who are fighting in combat, and an amazing thing. There's the book of the Torah. What's the other big book of Judaism? The Talmud. Most of us, we spend our lives trying to get through the Babylonian Talmud. It's over 3,000 pages, and Baruch Hashem, tomorrow I'm going to visit my son in the army with his unit because he's making a siyum, a completion of Seder Nashim. Right, there's 6 Sidrei Mishnah, and one of them is called Seder Nashim, and he's been learning Daf Yomi, one page of Talmud a day. That's the Babylonian Talmud, 1 page a day. It takes 7 years. So he's now in the army a month, but he was learning it even when he was in yeshiva, and when he was on break, he was learning 1 page of Talmud a day, and it's been now a few months, maybe 6 months, where he's been going through all of Masechet Yevamot, Ketubot, Nadarim, Nazir, Sotah, Gitin, and finally Kiddushin, and he finished this week, and so he's making a siyum on this entire portion of the Talmud, and so he wants to do it there with his army unit. What I saw the other day was a different soldier, he made a siyum not on 1 Masechet or 7 Masechtot of Talmud Bavli, but this fellow is so advanced in his learning that he's making a siyum on the entire Talmud. Siyum Hashas. But wait, Siyum Hashas, people do that sometimes. If you learn 1 page a day, 7 years, okay, over time, you manage. And Siyum Hashas is not so unheard of. But this fellow, his name is, I don't think he even calls himself rabbi. He's a layman. He works in a high-tech company. Now he's in Miluim, but he still learns Torah when he has downtime. And what he's been learning for the last, I think, over a decade, he's been learning Talmud Yerushalmi. There's 2 Talmuds, the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud. Sometimes it's called the Palestinian Talmud. So here he is fighting the Palestinians, and he made a siyum of the entire Talmud Yerushalmi. And someone wrote that this should be noted by the angel. The angel known in the Talmud as Ata Bati. I've come for now. Right? What I told you about that. Nighttime versus daytime. When you're not fighting, you can learn. It's a very beautiful thing that our soldiers who have to learn the instruments of war when they don't have to, they're not benighted, like I said before. They're not unenlightened. They're educated. They're scholars. They're dedicated to worship of Hashem, and they're going to the army as part of their worship of Hashem. So this is a beautiful thing, and so it's amazing, Ezra. Thank you for coming in and sitting down to learn with us. We are learning a little bit about the laws of Shabbat, about saving a life on Shabbat. And if you can save a life, you don't ask questions. And by the way, I was asked by 2 different former students of mine. I was a little bit insulted. I was a little bit, not insulted, but actually wary that maybe I didn't teach them well enough. Because they asked me, can I do this on Shabbat? They're in the army now, they're in reserves, each one. So they're not in combat units, the people who ask me the questions. And so they're like doing logistics. One of them drives like in the water corps. They drive the water so that the troops have water on the battlefront. And another one is involved in the Air Force. But he's not a pilot. He's doing logistics in the Air Force. And there's tons of stuff to do. And they both were concerned, can I drive my truck to take the water on Shabbat, or can I use my phone to, make sure that they have this part or that part? And of course, the answer was, it's a time of war. Time of war, do whatever you can, whatever is necessary to have the everything ready for the soldiers. Yes.
I was saying, on Shabbat, I had to guard the Shin Gimel, and I just open the electric gate, open, close for soldiers to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have my phone on me. Only for what I need it for, but I have it on me.
Right, of course, yeah.
Unplug it because it's dead, so I have to charge it, whatever.
You charge it, sure, you need it. It's part of your tools.
So I try using my right hand to,
Sweet. See that? He knows about this idea of shinui. If you do the malacha in the not normal way, it's a little bit less severe when it comes to violating Shabbat. Beautiful. You don't have to. When you're now we're in a state of war. I mean, that's what we do. Like when you're guarding during peacetime, and we have security around a community. So, yeah, you try to do it with a shinui if possible. And I remember when I was doing guard duty on my yeshuv, we set up a system where we had a rope instead of the electric gate on Shabbat because it wasn't really necessary. But now we have the big yellow anti-tank gates, right? That tank can't break down these big yellow gates. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're the entrance to the yeshuvim. So in peacetime, we don't even use them. They're like all open, and we have a regular gate, like a security, like one of these arms that you have to, it just slows you down essentially. But if you're a terrorist, it won't stop you. But in times of war, we close the big yellow gate, like in these kibbutzim around Gaza. They say that some of the religious kibbutzim, because of Shabbat, they close the big yellow gate, and they don't want to open it and close it whenever somebody has to come in. And somebody has to come in, so he calls, he makes a phone call. If there's a need, you can open it. But the standard is that every Friday afternoon, they close the big yellow gate. And I think 2 of the kibbutzim were saved, or somewhat saved. For the most part, they were not, because we actually have video footage of the terrorists coming on their motorcycles and their whatever trucks, and they tried to get into the gate, and they couldn't, because that yellow gate is hard to get by. And so they went to the next kibbutz. And so people are saying, wow, you see, keeping Shabbat saved their lives. I don't want anybody else's lives to be hurt because of it, but it's a phenomenon that... Anyways, nowadays, of course, during a war, you do whatever is necessary for the war effort, and even if it's logistics and even,
Just one word.
Yeah.
On top of that, whenever we had our ship, we just take the vehicle, drive down to the Shin Gimel,
Yeah.
park it, and do what we need to do. Get back in after, go back.
Right, right. So that if it was peacetime, and all it meant would be an extra few minutes, and so you do the extra effort and you would walk there. Right. But if in any way is going to hurt your readiness or your rest,
minutes to walk down there.
Yeah, makes sense. You have to drive. I mean, sometimes there's a patrol that comes anyways, and then you just hitch a ride with the patrol.
Yeah, sometimes. Some guys have their personal vehicles. So
right. Wartime, the rules are even more extreme. We're learning about peacetime. We're talking about medical issues, which but even that, if there's a danger to life, you do it as quickly as possible. That's what we were just learning, even by the rabbis, like we were saying. Anyways, okay, good. So that's really section 5 right now. Let's read section 5. Stephen, will you read for us?
Yeah. Using a shino to minimize Shabbat desecration. When dealing with saving life on Shabbat, a serious dilemma arises. On the one hand, it will seem to preferable to use a shino when doing whatever malakot are necessary. After all, when malakah is done in the normal way, one violates Torah law, while it is done with a shinui, one transgresses only rabbinically.
But you know what shinui means, right? A change from the normal way. Yeah.
On the other hand, when you come to saving a life on Shabbat, the sages proclaim that one who acts quickly is to be praised. If so, it would seem preferable to refrain from placing constraint upon one who is attempting to save a life. Rather, he should act as he would on a weekday, as efforts such as minimizing Shabbat desecration or attempting to do the malakot with a shinoi are likely to slow him down. This is especially true if he thinks it is necessary to consult a rabbi about how to act when the person's life is in danger. In practice, the basic principle is that rescue effort must be undertaken in the best and fastest way possible. If trying to do malakot with a shinoi is likely to delay treatment, it is preferable to do that in a normal fashion without any shinoi. This is because, according to the halakha, the rescuer may do malakot in a normal way, since saving a life overrides Shabbat. Nevertheless, when he is clear that the shinoi will not hamper the rescue in any way, it is preferable the hakila to make use of a shinoi. Therefore, it is advisable for doctors, nurses, and emergency medical workers to learn how to minimize Shabbat desecration while saving a person's life. There is a similar dilemma regarding treatments normally administered to a gravely ill patient during the week, some of which are not necessary to prevent his death, since the caregiver do not know which treatments are truly necessary and which are not. They must treat the patient just as they would treat him during the week. However, one who understands medicine and know for certain that a specific malakah is not necessary to save the patient, or that the treatment can be postponed until after Shabbat, he should avoid doing the malakah on Shabbat. Palliative treatment are administered on Shabbat even when it is clear that they do not treat the disease, because when the patient's pain is reduced, he will have more strength to overcome his illnesses.
Very interesting. Very interesting that sometimes even taking down the pain can help save a life, because he has more strength to fight the illness. The body is a very complicated machine, and it all works together. But the bottom line is, he says, we only get involved in a shinu when we're sure that it's not going to cause any delay. When we're talking about saving a life, the most important thing is to do it quickly. And when you start thinking about it, then sometimes here he's going to talk about traveling to the hospital. We mentioned already, we don't have to read it all inside. There's some people that when they drive their car, let's say they're driving to the hospital with a pregnant woman, okay, so she's having a baby. So for sure you're allowed to drive. But you don't know if it can be 5 minutes later, or you have 10 minutes. It's not like the baby's born usually right away. So you're thinking, okay, maybe what I'll do is I'll I'll drive slowly so that I won't have to put on the brakes when I get to the stoplight. Because every time I push the brakes, the light goes on. And then when I start driving again, I have to push down on the gas pedal, and that's going to, cause more fuel to be burned. If I drive slowly the whole way, I can minimize the Shabbat desecration. So there's a logic to that, because it's not necessary that the timing is not precise to the moment, but it could drive you crazy. Also, you could have an accident. Because if you're not driving in the normal way, then the other driver could try to pass you and then get a crash, or you could be so distracted by what you're driving and take the wrong turn, or so usually these things are tricky. He does say that if you have items in the car which are unnecessary, you should take them out ahead of time. The trickiest part is when you get to the hospital, because you're there already. So great, you get out of the car and you go to the hospital. You take your wife in to give birth. What could be the problem?
Turning off the car.
That's it. There's no real reason to turn off the car in terms of saving a life, because you're there, you're at the hospital. So leave the car running and go in. Some people do that. And sometimes the attendant knows what's going on and he goes over and turns off the car. But some people say, wait, that's dangerous to leave a car running. If you're in an underground parking lot, because carbon monoxide poisoning, and all right, so let's try to. So if you have a manual transmission, you can sort of turn off the car in a very easy way. You just sort of let the clutch go up, stall the car. That's that normal way of turning it off. But that's good. But what about turning off the lights? Well, if I don't turn off the lights, the battery's going to drain. Well, it depends what time it is. If it's the beginning of Shabbat, in 23 hours, for sure the battery's going to drain. If it's towards the end of Shabbat, leave the lights on, come back after Shabbat, and turn it off. But wait, if the battery's going to drain, then what if I need to get in the car afterwards and drive to another hospital because they tell me that this doctor's not in, or this specialist is not in, or, and this is I think the clincher. This is why when I took my son to the hospital on Shabbat, this is a story going back many years. It's a little bit bittersweet right now. I'll tell you why. But first, I'll finish the laws of Shabbat aspect. I turned off the car when I got to the medical treatment center. He broke his leg or something like that. And that's one of the things you have to take care of, because it could be dangerous, right? If it depends on how severe a break it is, it could, cause trauma, and if it's a big break. And anyways, broken leg, you have to go to the hospital. If it's a tiny sprain and you can wait a few hours till Motzei Shabbat, that can be done as well. But for most cases, the standard is if you have a danger, or you think you might have broken your leg, you drive to the. So I drove him to the hospital. It was a medical treatment center where they have X-rays and so forth, and they actually did an X-ray and they put a cast on him. But I turned off the car. Why? Because of this rationale, which I heard and I read about, and my father-in-law also thought this was a cogent argument, is that if you leave the car on in the parking lot of the hospital, or this was a medical treatment place, it was in a residential area, it could happen that kids, they're up Friday night late, they're wandering around, and they say, hey, there's a car, let's go for a joyride. You heard that concept? That kids will take the car, even though they may not want to steal it. They could steal it, and they could, be terrorists that are out to kill people. But even in a regular peacetime circumstances, a kid could take the car, and a car is a dangerous instrument, and could kill somebody. He could kill himself, he could kill somebody else by having an accident. And so the best thing to do is to turn off the car. I think you are allowed to turn off the car. Some poskim allow it. And I left the keys in the under the mat or something. I left them there because they're muktzah. I had no reason to keep the keys on me unless someone would, steal the car. But stealing is not the same. It's not necessarily dangerous. Anyways, I wanted to finish the story. Why is it bittersweet? Because they took care of my son, and here I am. It was Friday night. On the way home from shul is when he broke his leg. So I took him to the hospital right away. But the rule is, I'm not an ambulance driver. There's no reason I need to go back home. So there I am, stuck outside of my home with a little child. Must have been, I don't know, 5 years old, something like that. For an entire Shabbat, what am I going to do? So I took him on my back, and I thought that where we drove to was a place called Ma'aleh, the city called Ma'aleh Dumim near Jerusalem. And I remembered that we have a family friend who lives in Ma'aleh Dumim. So I carried him. It was about a 20-minute walk. I carried him. Well, I'm strong. What's the big deal? Well, what? What's wrong with 20-minute walk? Wait, you don't walk for 20 minutes? I'm not such a big hero. The soldiers walk a lot more than 20 minutes with a lot of heavier things on their back. So what's the big deal? So I carried him on my back for 20 minutes, and I knocked on the door. Friday night, knocked on the door of the Levenstein family. They made Aliyah from Toronto. They're my brother's very best friend. And they said, sure, come on in. They gave me a bed. They gave me food. We had a nice Shabbat there. That's the short story. Why it's bittersweet is because about a few years ago, the father of the household passed away. Michael Levenstein was a doctor from Canada. Made Aliyah, was a great doctor. But he got cancer. He passed away a couple of years ago. So it's a bittersweet memory that he's no longer with us. And even more fresh is that, you remember on Sunday, I didn't give class. It's because his youngest son, the youngest of 6, Yonadav, was killed in battle. Yeah, so that poor widow. Her husband died and now her son was killed. So I figured I should go to the funeral. We're close enough to spend Shabbat at a, anyways, so that's a memory that I spent Shabbat at his house a couple of years ago. Probably Yonadav was there, the guy that was just killed. But anyways, regarding the laws of Shabbat, turning off the car is the trickiest part because you really have to search for a good reason. I think it is a good reason. So you can do it with Bishinu. You can do it, not the normal way, like stalling the car and so forth. But in the end of the day, in the modern context, it can be quite dangerous to leave a running car somewhere. So there are rabbis who permit it. Yes, sir.
Pertaining to what you're saying about the keys.
Yeah.
If you have, say, your house key on there,
yeah,
just look to the muksa, or
so you can take the key with you. You could take the key. I think I might have even taken the key with me. I can't remember right now because when you have, we'll learn the laws of muksa next week, hopefully. When you have muksa items and non-muksa items on the same ring or in the same place, so sometimes you can carry them because it depends which one is more important. But anyways, we have to stop here. I want to do a song with you for Shabbat, and I want to please get the blue sidurim. We'll sing our usual song. Every day we're singing for the captives, for the hostages. Page 231, we'll start with that, and then we'll do it. Can I have 1, 2, please? And then we'll do something special for Shabbat as well. Page 231 at the bottom of the page. Acheinu kol beit Yisrael, Acheinu kol beit Yisrael, Anetunim batzara uveshivya, Haomdim bein bayam uvein bayabasha. Hamakom yerachem alehem yotzei mitzara lirvacha uyafel aleora umisheabor legeola hashta Bagala Ovizman Kahare. One more time. Hamako Yirafim Rachem Aleihem Yotzei Mitzrayim Li'avacha U'me'afel Aleora U'mishiabot Legeola Hashta Bagala Uvizman Kawawarif. Yeah, so this is our daily prayer now. We've been saying, which kibbutz? Can you tell me which one you've been on? Mishmar Negev. Near Gaza.
The other ones that were attacked.
Right, yeah, that was not attacked, Mishmar Negev. Oh.
No, the security is tense there.
Amazing.
So multiple checkpoints everywhere. There's our Kitat Kananut, and then there's also this people from the kibbutz also doing their shifts.
Baruch Hashem.
Now we're being redirected up north. Don't know where.
Okay.
Don't know what
All right. Okay.
I'll find out either today or tomorrow. I'll post them back
Sounds
today.
good. Yeah. Okay. Good. And you did some training, or just you've been doing guarding duty?
The most training I had was just getting familiar with the M16.
Right.
I've never shot that one before. I've only shot an AR-15 to war.
Tavor, yeah.
For a few days.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Vaseder, I'm sure in the north, probably you'll do some training. Yeah. You're in the Givati, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some of the Givatis inside Gaza. I'm glad you're moving up north. It seems to be safer for the moment. My son is up north. I'm going up north to visit him. Zat Hashem also today, tomorrow.
APD got hit. Heard about that?
No, I didn't. Just now?
A few days ago. APD got hit, killed 10 guys doing the reconnaissance.
That was in the beginning, yeah, right away, yeah. Seyeret Givati, yeah.
2 more yesterday.
Nice, yeah. All right. You don't have to listen to all the news. You focus on what you need to do, and it's good that you.
What I know is practical sources.
Yeah. Okay. How's your wife? She's all right. You spoke to her. You speak to her. You spoke to her. You have your phone with you, so you can speak to her. I'll talk to you. Okay, let's say there. Anyways, we should have Shabbat Shalom. You're going back for Shabbat on base, or you don't know where to?
I don't know where. They said we're going to go already this morning.
Okay.
We might not know until later tonight or tomorrow evening.
Right. Probably you'll go all the way south, and then they'll take you all the way north.
They'll pick me up from here somewhere.
Oh, they are going to pick you up from here. Oh, okay.
At some point, I don't know when.
Nice.
No one knows.
No one knows. Yeah, okay. All right, Peseder, it's good to see you, and stay strong, and we're proud of you, and let's have success for you and all the other soldiers and all of Am Yisrael. Shabbat Hashem. I wish you all Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Stay safe. Shabbat Hashem. So, tell me about Jen. What's going on?